All right, everybody. Today we're going to begin adding the details to our birch trees. So first, to start, you want to make sure that you have all of your sky and shadows painted. And then one thing I would do before you peel off the tape is just to look for areas that are just in the snow. And you might want to just very lightly trace a line on the side of the tape just so you can kind of know where to put those tree details. It'll be a lot easier to tell in the sky because it should just stay white and none of the paint should have gotten through it. But down here it can be a little misleading to tell how wide to make your tree. So I quickly added those lines there. Now I can carefully peel off my tape. I like to kind of, I can see this is sticking a little bit to my paper, but I'm going to just try to do little baby pulls at a time. I'm constantly moving my fingers really close to where I'm pulling. If I'm pulling from way back here, it's going to have a bigger tendency of tearing the paper. So if I kind of keep my fingers really close to it and just peel off a little bit at a time, hopefully it will come off in a nice clean rectangle like so. There's one. You can collect them together into a tape ball or just throw them away afterwards. If you start to tear some of your paper, please just stop, raise your hand, and I'll come help you to try to get it off a little bit cleaner. Yeah, got one more to go. Now, as we start working on our details of our trees, we need to remember that we're making something that exists in nature. So there is technically no right or wrong way to decorate these birch trees, but we're going to try our best to create some kind of textural lines on it and to try to just have some variety within each. But just remember, there is no right or wrong, and you would never find two birch trees that look exactly alike. So now that I got my trees ready, I want to set that aside, and I'm going to grab a practice piece of paper quick. For our details, we have two different options. You can either use some cardboard and paint, or you can use a couple different size Sharpies to just draw the lines on there. I really would encourage you to try this cardboard because you can get some pretty cool results. You're going to first dip it into the paint, but then I would encourage you to keep a practice piece by you because your first time is going to have too much paint. So you're going to want to just try to swipe across maybe 2 or 3 times like this just to get rid of those big chunks. But then you'll go to your tree and you would just kind of do, maybe try it 3 times. And you would just try to get a little bit like this. That's kind of our goal, is just to get a little bit of the black to show. You know, some bigger spots here and there are okay. You can push it either direction. But you can see once I get rid of the majority of the paint, it creates just this really rough kind of bark texture. This is not good. We don't want that. That's too much paint. So you want to, again, make sure that when you dip in, you go like this 2 or 3 times to get rid of the majority of the paint. And then on your big one, then you're going to just try to gently scrape across when there's just a little bit of that paint still on there. When it comes to doing your actual trees here, you want to just make sure that you don't go past that white rectangle. So look at this. I haven't even dipped back into the paint yet, and I'm almost done with my first one. You could even combine a combination of the two techniques. So like after I'm done like this, if I want to go back in and create some darker kind of circles or knots or different types of bark lines, go for it. This is all about experimenting and trying to create kind of a cool rough texture for our trees. It can be a little bit harder in these skinny ones. Just don't forget that when you do dip into your paint, to go back to that practice sheet to get rid of the big globs. Once you get rid of the big globs, then you just come back to your painting. I'll do one more here. So you just want to try to control your hand as you do this. I got one more tree. Scrape off the extra. There, look at that. So cool. Such a satisfying technique. And again, it is okay to have them a little bit different from each other. Some of mine have bigger black spots. Some might not have as much, and that's okay. That's the variety we want. Excuse me. So now you can see it. I really have completed my picture here. My trees now look like birch trees. So now I have one final choice. I could leave it just like this and put it on the drying rack, or I could go to the splatter station and kind of splatter on some snow on top. To do that, you're going to use a toothbrush and some of the watered down white paint. And then I like to just kind of dip it in like this, gently scrape across the extra paint. And again, if you would like, you could even get another practice piece of paper. There's kind of two different ways. If you put your finger underneath the toothbrush and you kind of flick your finger towards you, it's going to create a lot more of these smaller little speckles. If I put my finger below the toothbrush and kind of flick the toothbrush away from myself, it will often get larger ones. It's a little more unpredictable. So for this one, you may want to just do the little flick towards you to create a variety of these smaller snowflakes, but it's ultimately up to you. So again, if I want to do that on my painting, scrape off the extra, and then just kind of carefully go around your painting and just flick on some snowflakes. It's kind of a nice little finishing touch. This could also be a good moment to maybe fix any little smudges on your snow. You know, right down here, if I have a little bit, I could take some white paint and just cover that up. So there you have it. Have fun when you're finished with your final touches. Put it on the drying rack and then clean up your spot.